All right, what's up, everyone? What's up, everyone? It's Matt Mrozik. This will be work in progress number 3 on the Marvel vs. Capcom Wolverine. So I just sent photos of the yellow and blue to my client. Hopefully, those will get approved. I think they look really good. So as soon as he approves those or whatever, I can do the black and red on the suit, and the suit's pretty much done in the shoulder pads. So I'm going to work on the skin while I wait to hear back from him. So I'm mixing up kind of a basic flesh tone. He kind of gave me some basic directions. Keep it on the lighter side. So I'm using just some craft hobby paints. Initially I started off with a mix. This is just kind of a light pinkish flesh. So I've got some of and this is just called this is Folk Art brand. There's a bunch of brands. There's Apple Barrel, there's Folk Art, there's Anita's. You know, these are just craft paints you can get at Hobby Lobby. They're anywhere from $1 to $2 a bottle, and they work really well. I was really reluctant to try these, but all my painter friends that paint full time use this stuff. It's like, oh, I'm gonna give it a shot. The only downside is it's very light in pigment, but that's okay because you just build up the layers. So I mixed up a little bit here, and I'm going to try to go for kind of this color. This is kind of a neutral skin tone. So I've got a little bit of this, mostly this warm bisque with a touch of caramel and then a little bit of red. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more of this. I need to base coat the arms and all the faces. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more. And I just dilute it with water. And this will kind of be our base tone. And then we're going to go in with oils and stuff to bring out the details in the skin. I want to make sure I have enough of this mixed up for a base coat. And again, it's pretty light on pigment, so I just put a little bit of this caramel in there because I don't want too orange or too brown. That just helps warm it up a little bit. And then to get a little more fleshy in there, I add just a little bit of red. And this will kind of get us a good starting point, I think. And again, these paints are really inexpensive, so I don't mind like wasting it because it's a buck a thing. So I'm going to kind of use my own skin tone as a reference here. I'm a little bit on the yellow side, but take the skin, you know, I can put some on my skin. It's a little on the orange side, so I may add just a little more red. I think this is a pretty good starting point in there. My camera does not render color very well, unfortunately. I use my cell phone. So then we'll dilute this with some water. Everything's been primed in Stynol Res. On this face where I glued the hair down, I went in and just sanded it very lightly around where I did my putty work just to help give a smoother transition. And then the paint will help blend that in a little bit. You don't want to make this too watery, but you want to make sure it will go through your airbrush. So let's try that out, see how that comes out. No, I saw a primer in my airbrush here. Let's clean that out real quick. And I just touched up the primer where I sanded it a little bit. Let's clean this out real quick. Put this in here and see how it comes out. So as I do with like the yellow, I'm going to put a light coat on everything. I'm just going to follow the same steps with each piece so I have a consistent color. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is kind of what I did on Deckard, where I just put on light and I see a little bit of primer coming through. The Deckard kit I did a couple months ago is the best skin tones I've ever done, the most realistic. So I'm going to do that on that guy. Let me get this on a clip. Oops. And then I'm going to do something I usually don't do. I'm going to do some speckling on this with some other colors to kind of represent pores and freckles and stuff. I usually don't do that technique. A lot of guys do it all the time. So I'll come back when I'm done base coating. Alright, well I changed directions for a second because I got approval on the yellow and the blue for my client. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through and hand painting the black. It's one of the few times where I just do everything hand painting, because to mask this would take forever. So I've got in my cup, I've got some, this is Liquitex Heavy Body Acrylic. And I've also put a little bit of Vallejo black in there because this tends to be just a tad lighter. And yeah, that doesn't make sense, but there are different shades of black. So I add just a little bit of Vallejo black just to make sure it's nice and black. And I thinned it down with some water. And it's going to take about probably at least 2 coats, probably 3 coats to get a real nice even coverage of this, because I've got it thinned down so that my brush strokes don't show up. And as you can see here, it's really nice and even. So this hood is a little interesting because you have to kind of follow. You have to imagine that this hood is pulled back on his head, and so there's a stitching here. So I'm going to outline, do everything in black. It's supposed to be black, and then we'll. I've already got the other heads kind of the first coat on. I'll show this to you here in a second, but I'm just going in here. This one I'm using a large flat brush to be able to get in there and kind of get the outline with a flat brush. When I do big areas like this, I try to use the biggest brush possible to reduce the amount of paint brush strokes. And once this is all covered and flat coated, if there are any brush strokes, you won't see them. So that's looking pretty good. So here's one head right here, and this is probably the second coat of black. And the tricky part is getting it around the nose and stuff. I got a little bit of cleanup here I got to do. I just noticed I got a little overpaint. But these have been sealed really well yesterday with a lacquer. So I get my little Q-tip where I bite the tip off, and then I just kind of put a little saliva on it, and I got a little scrubby brush. And that's what I use to kind of, if I get any overpaint on these, since this is an acrylic, as long as they don't let it dry too long, they'll come right off. Just like that. So it's looking good. So I'm going to hand paint the heads, the hood, and then the trim on the legs. Get those all in black. Seal them again, and then the feet will be done. And then the only thing left on this. Oh, and I got to do all the stripes on the body and stuff. So this is going to be a good portion of the day, just doing the black. My goal was to get the black done and maybe the skin tones, but now I'm looking at how much black I gotta do. It may take a good portion of the day to do that. So that's where I am right now, just doing the black. When I get done with that in a couple hours or however long it takes, I'll show it to you. All right, continuing on with work in progress number 2. So I've done quite a bit since the last time I recorded anything. I got all the black painted, which took just about all day. It was all hand painted, so it's just a slow process, but turned out really good. So we got all the trim on the black, on the boots painted, the gloves, the stripes on the torso, and we got the black painted on the masked heads. So there's that, guys. I'm cleaning up the teeth a little bit, so they're a little messy right now. And let's see, we'll just get the other one on here. You get a little bit of paint rub when you put these on and off. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the nature of switch outs, which is one reason I don't like switch outs, because you get the paint rub. So those are looking good. And then I also painted. I try to avoid paint rub, but even though these have been sealed a lot, you're gonna get some paint rub. And then this hood, I guess that's like he's ripping it off his head. Been painted with the black. Let's see if we get this on there. See, now I got a shoulder pad on there. Doesn't want to sit right. There it goes. It all fits together just in a very specific way. But that's looking good. So when you put this all on, it's a pretty tight fit as far as the fit goes, how everything fits together. So I think the fit on this kit could have been a lot better, to be honest, on certain areas, especially for what these things cost. But anyway, also I epoxied these parts on last night for the claws, and then painted a little black line in there. I just mentioned to my client I'm going to leave the claws separate, so they're easy to they're easily removable, and that way there's less chance of them snapping off and shipping, which is a very common occurrence with Wolverines. The claws snap off, they get jarred or something. So yeah, also the shoulder pads is the next big thing that I did last night. So what I did for those is I'd actually painted them blue first, just this color blue, and then we were going back and forth what to do with the metallic. I like the metallic look, so he said do what you want. So I painted them with Vallejo metal color chrome, which is not really chrome, it's like a bright silver. And then on top of that, I layered on several coats of Tamiya clear blue thin with Mr. Color thinner. So I got kind of this bluish tone right here. And then I went around the edges with a mix of Mr. Color deep clear blue with a little clear black in it. Typically I would do mostly clear black, but I'm running out of materials and I can't get them because of the whole COVID thing. The stores aren't carrying them, and getting them shipped has been really hard. So I'm making do with what I have, and I just kept layering that on until I got this nice shaded look, and then I hit it with that 2K gloss last night, and now they look like glass. So really, really nice. So today's goal, not a whole lot really because it's my birthday, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in the studio. But what I would like to do is, my goal is I'm going to add some real simple, just kind of where there's like battle damage on these, I'm just going to add a little bit of silver paint to make it look like it's been scratched off, so that's pretty easy to do. That's on both these guys. I've got one piece of dirt here that I'm really reluctant to try to sand out. I think I just may leave it. Sometimes if you get dirt in your clear coat, it's better just to leave it than try to sand it out, because if I sand through, I'm screwed. I can't touch it up. So it may just be one of those things where I just have to leave it because it's better than trying to fix it. That happens every once in a while. So the gloves are done. I'll put those aside. The skin tones I'm going to leave till probably tomorrow, because that will take. Everything's to the side here. The skin will take me a good, I would assume, most of the day. There'll be a lot of layers, a lot of back and forth. With the mastheads, that's pretty simple. We're just going to paint the eyes, kind of like we're not going to do white, because that looks really weird when you paint these straight up white. They're just too bright. So we're going to do kind of an off-white, maybe a very light gray. Get those gloss coated, and then the only thing left on those will be the face inserts, which I have to do with the rest of the skin so it matches. Now there's another weird choice on this kit, and I don't know why they did it. For the face with the teeth, they sculpted the bottom of the nose on the face. So I've got to, when I do the skin, I got to be able to blend that in, which is not the end of the world. But on the other one, they sculpted the bottom of the nose on the insert, so it's all one piece. So again, I don't know. Sometimes I question some of the choices these guys make. Some make sense, some don't make sense. That to me doesn't make sense. For the belt, he specifically requested a brighter red, not such a dark red. So what I can do is take the torso off. Everything fits really well now. Especially as you paint things, you get paint build up on the keys, they fit tighter and tighter. Let me get the shoulder pads out of the way so those don't get scuffed up. These have been curing now for about 12 hours, but really they need a good 24 hours before they're 100% cured. So let me put this to the side. My goal is, I'm going out of town on Monday. I'm going to go see my buddy Floyd up in New York for a couple days. It's kind of my birthday present from my wife. Said, why don't you go see your buddy Floyd? Like, all right. So I was able to get a really cheap plane ticket for like $200. So I'll go to New York for a couple days. It'll be fun. So my goal is to get the Wolverine part, the figure, done before I go out of town. And then when I get back, I'll do the base. We're still kind of talking about the base. So let's do these eyes first, because these are the easiest part, and then we'll worry about the belt. Cause I'll actually, all this black was hand painted, so it took forever. Cause it took 2 or 3 coats, and it's just really tedious to go around all the edges and get it as clean as possible. So it's just time consuming. So you just throw in a couple movies and go for it. And see, I'm getting just from putting these heads on and off, I'm getting scuff marks. So I seal the ever-living crap out of these things. I put so much sealer on them that if it becomes a problem, basically you can take a Q-tip with a little bit of dampness on it and just kind of scrub any of those scuff marks off. So it shouldn't be a big deal. All right, for these eyes, let's do bone white. It's kind of my go-to for whites of eyes. And this will take a couple coats because this paint isn't 100% opaque. Meaning that's a little bit transparent. That's fine. And we'll get a small brush. Get down in there. Let's see what we got here. This little guy should work. And a little palette. I have a stack of these plastic palettes. What I do is once they get all dirty, I can either peel the paint off, or I can soak them in some thinner. And bone white. So this is kind of like a cream white. I think it's good for whites of eyes. And nothing fancy here. Just going to take a fine brush. And I like a liner brush. So you can get down in there easier. And I should have my optivisor on, but I don't. So you don't want to try to do it all in one go, you just want to build it up. And then you clean it up, we can go in and just kind of clean up with some black around the edges if we need to. And then the final step on this will be to gloss coat the whites. So you can get in there with a liner, and you can, if we mess it up, you just get a little Q-tip and soak it up. So that's one coat. It's a little transparent, but it's pretty nice because by the time I get done with this coat on this eyes, I can go back and do the second coat. And I'm just going to keep building it up till I get the opacity I want. Take 2 or 3 coats, but it's nice and thin paint, so it kind of runs up into the crevice of the eyes nicely. This paint is pretty thin, so it tends to bead up a little bit because it is an acrylic, so it's, you know, water-based. So this, if you're hand painting this, it hand paints better over a flat surface. Actually, if it was a gloss surface, you'll never be able to hand paint. It'll just bead up. I don't get too much on the. Okay, let's go do a second coat on these eyes. So just over and over again until I build up the opacity. And probably take at least minimal 3 coats because the paint's so thin, but and if you're finding that when you go to do your second and third coats, it's not covered, it's just beading up, just seal the eyes again with a matte coat, and then the paint will stick a little bit better. Yeah, so I'm just going to do this until these are done, and then I'll come back. But I think you get the idea. Just keep building it up. And then if I have any overpaint, which so far I don't have any, I'll go in and clean it up with some black. Also, I think I need to shake my paint up a little bit. I think I've got it's mixed up enough. So I'm going to finish these up and then we'll come back. Alright, that took about 10 or 15 minutes, but those are all painted. So we'll seal these with flat coat, and then actually I can just gloss over and they'll probably be okay because I went in and touched up any black, so we'll just gloss over these and then those eyes will be done. And then I guess these parts are finished except for touching up the skin tone underneath the nose here when I do the other parts. So yeah, looking good. So let's put those to the side. And then we'll work on this belt. So, because of the way this is sculpted, masking tape really isn't an option. So, I'm going to get out the silly putty. And one second, let me get to it. Alright, so I got a chunk of silly putty here. We're going to mask this off the best we can, and then we'll do any touch-ups with a brush afterwards. Silly putty is not my favorite thing to mask with. It's good for certain things, but I prefer tape. But the way this is sculpted, taping this would be just about impossible. The tape wouldn't stick because of the texture of the sculpt and getting it into all these. I'd have a bunch of brush touch-ups anyway, so yeah, we're just gonna do this. So I like to take it, and I really need to get like a rolling pin up here because I'd like to roll it out thin into sheets. Let me just take a paintbrush and kind of roll it out. Because then I cut it. One thing I don't like about the slave putty is trying to get it, getting it as thin as tape is really hard, and then when you do, sometimes you make it too thin and the paint goes through, so yeah, I like tape because it's just really thin. You get a real nice crisp edge. So just kind of roll that out. So, and then sometimes I'll even cut it to get that straight piece. And this is kind of how I work it. So I lay it down, and I get my little sculpting tools. I need to get another set. I've kind of destroyed my sculpting tools. Where's my other one? I had another one of these somewhere. This one right here. This is the one. And just kind of push it as close to the edge as possible. Yeah, the advantage to slave putty is that it doesn't stick well, and the disadvantage of it is it doesn't stick well. So, a lot of guys use it because they're afraid their paint's going to lift. I'm usually not worried about that because I clean my pieces really good. And I've put the right prep into the part, so it doesn't mean I don't get lifting every once in a while. I do. But it's very, very rare that I get paint lifting. So I tend to use a harder tool like this because I can get it closer to the edge. Of where I'm trying to get it to go. And I can thin it out as I. So what I do is I don't put it right up to the edge. I kind of put a little away from the edge and then I push it in. Because then it thins it out as you push it into place. And if this was a different color than red, I'd hand brush it, but red is terrible at covering. So I want to put some primer down. Otherwise this yellow will show through. I would never be able to 100% cover up the yellow. So I gotta do some priming first. Sorry about all the noise. I'm not using my mic now because I think my mic is causing some problems in my videos. I've lost some clips because the files are corrupted, and I think it's because my mic is causing some issues for some reason. So you hear you can hear stuff in the background when I am using my mic, but when I'm not using it, you can really hear it. So you can hear my kids and everything in the background. But my work area is open to the whole house, so if there's something happening in the house, you hear it. Like I don't have a door I can close. So you see that, so I'm just. That's looking pretty good. And you notice here I didn't try to wrap that around because I don't want to force it to take a contour. Let's cut off another piece here. And again, see, I kind of laid it away from where I want it. and then I push it into place so I can thin it out. You gotta be careful with these metal tools though, because if you push too hard, you'll go through the silly putty and you can scratch the paint that you did previously. So I do have some of those silicone tools, but I don't feel like I can get it as thin with those, so I like to use this tool. So then hopefully at the end, all I have is a little brush touch up right around the edge. And it doesn't, the color doesn't match perfectly because it'll be in a kind of a shadow area, so it can be a little darker. And he was pretty specific on the red. He wants a brighter red. Which is cool. No big deal. And I'm not too worried about masking perfectly around the belt buckle because that's going to get hand painted black here in a little bit after the fact. So I'm just going to do it kind of dirty like that. And then the rest of this I'll wrap in saran wrap. It's getting pretty good. Alright, so let's get out the saran wrap. There it is. I'm actually getting low on this. Finally, after a few years, this thing's getting low. This is a big roll. And then we'll go in the spray booth and get some primer on it and see what kind of reds we got. And then what I'll do is to make sure that I don't get any bleed through where the saran wrap meets the silly putty, I'll put a layer of silly putty over the saran wrap, and then the silly putty I put down, and I'll seal that edge. So I'm just sandwiching the silly putty, or the saran wrap between the silly putty. Just like that. And then we don't get any bleed through. Alright. Pretty good. Just like that. So we'll prime this and then we'll get some red on it. And then I want to get approval of the red before I unmask it because I don't have to go back and mask it again. So it's one of those situations where I paint a color and then I wait for approval before I move on. So we'll do that here in a minute. Alright, so I'm in the spray booth. I primed the bell with some Badger Gray Stylo Res, and then I went in with some white primer and just hit the highlights. So now I got my kind of my pre-shading going on. And I went back to my notes from my client. He said kind of a bright orangey red. So I don't have like an orangey red. But what I am going to do is I'm going to lay down first a coat of this fiery orange from Playmo Colors. This is paint I've had for, gosh, like 10 years. You can't buy it anymore. And I'm having a hard time opening this bottle because it's been a long time since I've used it. I gotta get pliers. So I've contemplated actually just getting rid of these paints because you can't buy them anymore. It's a long story. But so yeah, so I got this fiery, and the lids are so old. Like whenever I try to take one, like I just broke the lid. So I'm not sure I can even put the lid back on if I want. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with a coat of this fiery orange, which is kind of a really deep orange. as a kind of a base coat. And this paint's really thin, it doesn't cover very well. And then we'll hit it with the red. So this is just to kind of give it a slight orange tinge. And we're going to use all the properties of reds and yellows that don't cover very well. Because you'll see this through the, you'll see this underneath the red. Hit the whole thing. And this is about all I want on here. I don't want it orange, I just want a tint. Alright, so I think that's pretty good. I have this bright red, which I think once again, I'm making this up as I go. Once I put it on top of this, it's going to give me the color I think he wants. So, and if I need to dark it down, I can with another color. But he wants to go with basically what's in the artwork for the video game. I'm not gonna worry about cleaning it out too much. I'll just mix in a little bit. So if you ever watch my other videos, red does not cover well. Now I don't have this thinned at all, so this may not take a whole lot. That may be it right there. That may be all I need. May hit it with one little layer of that bright orange again. Make sure I get down in that crevice by the silly putty. It's hard to get paint in there with the airbrush. You can see where I hit it with that white highlight. It's showing up pretty nicely. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna put a little bit, I'm gonna mix a little bit of this fiery orange in here. Just a hair. Warm it up a little bit. Looks pretty good. It's hard to see in the camera because my lights are so hard, but yeah, it's a nice bright red with just a hint of orange in it. I think that's what he's wanting. So I gotta let this dry for a little bit, and then I'll seal it, and I'll send a picture to him. And if it's good, I'll take the silly putty off, touch up the edge, and then hand paint the buckle black, and then we'll go from there. Come back. All right, so I'm waiting to hear back on approval on the red. I sealed it and everything, and I sent a picture. We're going to polish up these claws a little bit. So I've got a couple options here. They're actually they're not real dull to begin with, so I'm not going to make these like a chrome finish. So I've got a couple things. In the past, I've used this buffing wheel on my drill with some compound, but I actually bought a cordless buffer. I've had this for like over a year, but I've yet to use it. So I'm going to give this a shot. We'll see. These are these foam pads. This is for like final finishing. This has got a little coarser foam to it. So we're going to give this a shot. I bought this specifically for polishing model parts. So I've got some buffing compound, which buffing compound is basically like a liquid kind of sandpaper. It's got some grit to it. So I'm just going to use the edge here. And hopefully I don't sling polishing compound everywhere. And we're going to... It's pretty quick work of it. So just like that. So this is before and this is after. So it's pretty good. It took, what, like 10 seconds? Yeah. So we're going to do that to these guys, and then they'll be have a nice shine to them. And then to clean it off, you just take a soft cloth and wipe off the excess compound. But they got some shine, but they're not like a chrome finish, which is, I've never been a fan of like chrome claws. I think it looks kind of weird. But you can see all the black on the buffing wheel. That's all the tarnish that was on there. And that's just from the manufacturing process. So when using buffing compound, ideally you spread it out before you start the wheel, because it'll sling it everywhere. And start out slow too. This is easier than using the drill for sure. I wonder if you can, oh, it's got 2 speeds too. Ooh, I don't need to go that fast. Like I said, this is the first time I've used this thing. I bought it a long time ago. Just be careful. So the way this spins, it spins going this way. So if you get to the edge, it wants to catch that edge. So you just gotta make sure you're careful. Because if it catches, it'll throw this thing across the room. And then you got a flying claw. Yeah, looks good. So we're gonna do that to all the claws. And those will be done. Yeah, so I got a nice reflectiveness to them now. No, they're not so dull. So we're gonna do that to all those, and then that will be done. So one thing I forgot to mention when you're doing something like this is that this will heat the metal up very quickly. So just be careful, because as I'm polishing up here, it's heating up the metal. And you can burn yourself, so just be careful. And also with this spinning, this is basically like a spinning razor blade, this edge, so that can get you in slicing. But the metal will heat up pretty quickly, so just be aware of that when you're polishing something by hand. If you're holding it at one end, you're polishing another, that heat will transfer pretty quickly, and you can burn yourself. So just be careful. All right, so I got approval on the red, so I unmasked everything, and now I got. I was like, "What is that?" Sleep buddy. It freaked me out for a second. Sleep buddy. So what I did is I mixed up kind of a color that's kind of close to what I have, and a slightly darker, just with some Vallejo red and a little bit of kind of yellowish color. And I'm just going up and touching around the edge now, and this color doesn't match exactly. And actually, if it's a little darker, it's actually nice. It kind of adds a little shadow to it. So I'm just touching this up. It's not too bad of a touch up. And then once that's done, I can seal this again, and then paint the buckle black. Just got a little bit of water here to. Pretty easy touch up. Masking is actually pretty good. I'm using a liner brush again so I can get into the crevice. This looks a little bright right now, but once it dries, it'll be a good color. It'll dry down a little bit. And then we've decided that we're not going to add any scratches to the shoulder pads. We're just going to leave them. It's fine. I think it'll look good. Because the way that they're painted with the candy color, the metallic paint kind of reflects the light. You can kind of see the battle damage as it would be. So right in here, it's almost impossible to get paint in there with an airbrush, so that's where the brush touch-up comes into play. That's pretty much it. And then if I want to blend this in a little bit, I just take a very small amount of this paint on my brush to kind of dry and just kind of blend it in a little bit. It's just a hair darker than what I have on the belt, and I'll just kind of add like a shadow to it. So there you go. There's the red. Looks good. So we'll seal this and then do the belt buckle, and the upper torso is done. Okay, double checking everything, all angles, and we look good. Also, I had to sand the key because I tried to put it back on the torso and the fit was so tight from all the paint buildup. So I sanded all the paint off the key because I could not get it back on the torso after all the paint and everything. So yeah, after you paint these after a while, depending on the fit, sometimes you have to do that. You take the paint off the keys so they'll fit back together. But that's it for that part. I'm not going to videotape painting the belt buckle because it's just painting it black. And then the upper torso is done. It looks good. So I think I may call this work in progress done because the next one will be skin tones. Because after this belt buckle is painted, the suit's done. So I'm in good shape. So yeah, we'll call this work in progress done, and the next one will be skin tones. So as always, thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.